Clearly, Roadhog has been demolishing the meta, and since he is the meta, I came up with the top 50 tips to actually help you master this hero. My name is Nate, and welcome to Blizzard Guides. So I have roughly 20 mechanics tips, 20 playstyle tips, and then just 10 random tips at the end. Now, the further into the video you go, the more advanced they'll get, so if you hear some simple tips you might have already known, it's because I want this video to work for everybody. So with that, let's get into this video. Starting us off, a classic is just to use your alternate fire before you hook. This allows you to do more damage to confirm more kills. Next is a technique called a button queuing. When you hook a target, hold down your primary fire as you're reeling them in to instantly queue and instantly damage as fast as possible. And similarly, when your primary fire animation is going out, you can hold down the melee key to get that melee in as fast as possible. Next is the fake out hook. If you use your melee animation, you can bait people into thinking that you're using your hook, which is pretty useful for getting cooldowns out like Deflect or Zarya's Bubble. Just like the previous fake hook, you can also wave hello and look to the right and then look back at your target, and it looks kind of like a hook animation. This one works better in the heat of the battle, but it is a little bit better than the melee fake out just because you can still cancel the hello animation, so if you need to shoot at somebody, you still have that opportunity. At number 46, you can cancel your take a breather with your ultimate. This is useful if you're getting chased and you want to bait somebody into thinking that you can't actually attack them. You can whip around and use your ultimate. Just like with the take a breather, you can also cancel your hook. In this situation, you want to cancel your hook animation in the event that, let's say, a Genji is dashing at you as you're hooking a tank. Obviously, it's going to be difficult to kill the tank, so using your ult to keep the Genji away is much better in that situation. For number 44, just like the previous two, you can cancel your reload animation with your ultimate, so if you need to confirm a kill and you don't have any ammo in your gun, just pop your ultimate and you'll be able to confirm those kills and then kill more people with your ult. For number 43, if you're trying to escape from an enemy, look down at the ground as you walk away to hide your head hitbox, but I do want to note, take a breather will expose your head hitbox, so you need to use your healing ability with discretion in case you're going to get headshot by a Widow. At number 42, a classic is the side hook. If you look at somebody and hook them and then you look to the left or look to the right, you can hook them slightly further, which gives you more time to kill them. Next, you can chain this side hook to pull people off the map. Most people are aware of this, so I'm not going to say that much about it. Now, using that same side hook technique, you can also body block people in corners. So if you're standing by an outward corner, you can actually hook them in and then body block them in that corner, which is really handy against tanks to help confirm that kill, just because you can't one-shot most tanks, so you need the help from your team. At number 39, to hook people onto high ground to give you slightly more time to be able to fire shots at them, you need to jump, look up, and side hook them to the side, and it will pull them up to high ground. It's a bit difficult to pull off, so I recommend that you practice it just a little bit, but this one's great in case that they try and jump off the high ground. You get a few more shots in, which is always pretty great. At number 38 is an advanced side hook technique. If you pull them early, you can actually get them stuck on faraway walls, which is pretty handy for spots like this. You just need to pay attention to where you can do this, and you'll actually see that it actually is pretty useful. For number 37, Whole Hog is a bit deceiving in the way it works. It's actually not a continuous line of damage. There's actually 5 zones of damage, so if you bounce somebody in between the 2 zones, you'll more consistently knock them back and deal slightly more damage, which is pretty useful to know if you're playing Roadhog. For number 36, when you're hooking somebody that is on high ground while you are on low ground, hook as you jump and you will be able to maintain line of sight on the enemy, which is pretty handy because you can obviously hook them in and confirm that kill. So whenever going for a high ground hook, just jump and hook at the same time and you will land more hooks. And just to make those high ground hooks a little bit easier, the hook hitbox does not need to be perfect. Your crosshair does not need to be on the enemy that you're going on a hook for. Just aim slightly above them if you're going for that high ground hook, and it still probably will hook. It's a little bit more inconsistent, but hey, it works a lot better, so obviously you should use that technique. Next up, it is easier to hook targets that are not walking towards or away from you. Instead, you should go for hooks on people that are walking side to side. If you see what I mean, the hitbox of players has more area on their side profiles instead of dead on, so those hooks are a little bit easier, and that's something that I personally go for more when I was learning how to play Roadhog, just because those hooks are a lot easier and more forgiving than going for hooks on people that are strafing left and right. For number 33, a really useful technique is knowing how much damage it takes to break shields. So it is 2 alternate fires for a Brigida, it is nearly 3 alternate fires for an Orisa. You just need a little bit more damage, so either a primary or just any help from any teammates. And then it is 4 alternate fires for a Sigma/Winston shield, but it's usually 3 if your team is also dealing damage. So what you use this information for is on the 3rd shot on an Orisa shield, for example, throw your hook out and you will be hooking before the shield actually breaks, but still land the hook. It's incredibly powerful. At number 32, Reinhardt's Fire Strike is a 6-second cooldown. So if you see a Reinhardt use Fire Strike, count in your head 1 through 6, and then on the 6th second, throw your hook, and it's likely that the Reinhardt will use his Fire Strike off of cooldown, which will get you a really good prediction hook. When an Orisa is fortifying or a Diva is remeching and you whole hog them, they will not move, which means you can do the full amount of damage for whole hog, which will kill them in literally a second, which is incredibly powerful if you're trying to confirm a kill on a Diva that's contesting point or an Orisa that you just hooked. At number 30, you should be using your healing ability as a tanking ability when you're guaranteed not to have it cancelled or bursted down. This is a bit risky, but for example, if the enemy team is lobbing a lot of damage at your team and you need to protect your hit scans on high ground or something like that, you can actually just heal in the direction of the damage and you can prevent all that damage from coming in, and it will reduce the amount of ult charge the enemy gets because you have a 50% damage reduction on Take a Breather. Coming in at number 29, you should be using your heal ability to tank ultimates that don't give the enemy team ult charge, such as Hanzo's Dragons or Wrecking Ball's Mines or Pharah's Barrage, just to name a few. Genji's Blade is another good example. Basically, you want to use that healing ability to generate yourself ult charge and your support's ult charge without actually dying. At number 28, not every hook has to be a kill. This is an incredibly important mindset change that helps a lot when playing Hog in this meta. If you get a hook and they get away, don't overcommit if you're not 100% sure that you're going to be able to confirm that kill with the help of your teammates. You can get hooks and just have it be a waste for the enemy team's resources. At number 27, you need to save your healing ability for disengagement. Do not engage fights using your healing ability. It is your most useful tool for getting out of fights safely. So keep that in mind when you're playing Roadhog and you'll survive a lot longer. Similarly, don't waste your healing when your supports can heal you safely and you're not in threat of dying. If you take damage and your supports can heal you and you're not going to immediately die, don't use Take a Breather. Save it, let your supports generate ult charge, because you generate ult charge by dealing damage yourself so faster than your supports do. At number 25, when you are dueling an enemy and they are using cover such as a wall or a pillar or anything that is vertically standing, spam the perfect distance with your alternate fire if they're peeking back and forth, which will almost always land some form of damage, which will help you in a duel, especially against a Tracer or a McCree, just because of the way that their strafe animation works. At number 24, when you are playing Roadhog, Roadhog should almost never die. It's incredibly important that you focus on staying alive more so than getting big kills when you're playing Roadhog. This is a pillar of good tanking in general, but Hog especially, just because you do not want to be an ult battery for the enemy team. So when you do play Roadhog, just be careful, be mindful, and try not to die. At number 23, knowledge of angles where enemies will predictably walk is incredibly important. So in this clip, you can see this is one of those angles where the enemy is forced to walk in a straight line, and you should be mindful of angles that exist like this. It is easier to hook people that are walking predictably in a choke point where you can almost blindly throw your hook than throwing a hook in an open field. At number 22, it is incredibly important that you abuse cover when you play Roadhog. You should almost always be on high ground or by a wall or by a pillar or any sort of natural cover that will protect you even even the payload works well. When you are playing Roadhog, you need to stick like glue to any sort of cover possible. At number 21, hooking first against a Roadhog is incredibly risky. You do not want to waste your healing ability because it is effectively 300 extra HP you have. Your enemy Roadhog will still have hook and can cancel your healing, which will effectively grant you a free death. At number 20, it is very important when you play Roadhog that you play as a main tank first. Now, I know Roadhog is not a main tank, but in this specific meta, Roadhog needs to be at the front of the fight, taking the brunt of the damage and dealing the bulk of the frontline damage. So you need to play in the front as a main tank and you'll do great. Now, however, obviously you do want to flank on Roadhog. Roadhog is a flanker hero, so you should only ever flank when you have both your abilities up and when pressure on your team is either overwhelming or underwhelming. So in the overwhelming case, that means that your team already kind of got steamrolled, a few people on your team died, the enemy team has numbers, and you need some sort of advantage in the fight to tip it in your favor. An underwhelming case would be when there's no threat of change and the enemy team is not really putting pressure on your front line or your DPS or something like that, and you can quickly go on a flank to get an early pick in the fight or as the enemy team is retreating. At number 18, hook accuracy is much more important than big value hooks. Your goal is to eat up resources with your hooks, not necessarily to get huge picks. Now, obviously, if you can go for a bad pick or a good pick, go for the good pick, but you should really be trying to use your hook almost off of cooldown and just getting as many hooks as possible. And if you don't get those kills, the enemy team probably invested a lot of resources to keeping that person alive, which may not have been valuable. At number 17, even the payload can be useful cover, and you can still use the body block technique on some payloads. So just keep in mind that you have really good payload control as Roadhog. When your teammates are getting dove or attacked or your supports need help, you can also body block them. You have the biggest hitbox in the game. You don't even need to take a breather. You can just stand in front of your teammates for a few seconds and it will prevent lethal shots. At number 15, it is super important that you control high traffic areas that your teammates otherwise could not or would not. So my favorite example is on Route 66, second point. This building is gold for Roadhogs. You literally just camp this building, high ground, low ground, corners, whatever you want to do, and flankers can't flank on that right side. People can't get high ground. You can get quick picks on that flank on the underground and still have cover to play around. Those kinds of areas are very strong as Roadhog, and that's areas that your hit scans can't control or your Zarya can't like effectively take use of, but you as Roadhog can. So focus on areas like that and you'll do a lot. Now, alternatively, if that's not your kind of playstyle and if the enemy team has a lot of flankers, you can play kind of an intermediate role where you're in between the front line and the back line, and you can control your own back line when front line pressure is minimal and prevent the flankers from getting big picks because they're in fear of that incredible hook accuracy that you obviously definitely have. Flankers will not provide pressure in the front line, which means your Zarya can handle the front line a lot better. So if you see that the enemy team has a lot of flankers, you can opt to control the back line as well. Now, if you're wondering how you're doing on Hog and you need to figure out if you're actually impacting the fight well enough, the biggest indicator of impact is your KD. So if you ever wonder what's going on with your team and you don't have that great of a KD, you might not be doing your job on Roadhog. At number 12, you need to rely on your audio more for going for predictive hooks or hooks on people that don't know you're there yet. You need to listen very carefully for enemies that are flanking or on high ground or on low ground or something like that when you're on a better advantaged position, and then you can go for predictive hooks based on the audio, which will actually be surprisingly easy to do. Now, my biggest tip for players on PC to actually do this effectively is go to your sound settings and turn on Dolby Atmos for stereo headphones, I think it's what it's called. This will allow you to tell the difference between high ground and low ground, or behind a wall or beneath you, or all sorts of different things. At number 11, it is very important for advanced Roadhog players that have really already mastered most of the tips in this video to pay attention to the enemy's cooldowns for kills that you're going for, or if you need to escape, so things like stuns or anti-nades. So my example would be, If your team has Nanoblade and the enemy team has Transcendence and you need to kill the Zenyatta, you should pay attention to the Zarya's projected bubbles on the enemy team. So as soon as that Zarya uses projected bubble, you can start hunting for that kill on Zenyatta so you can kill him so that your team can Nanoblade. Focus on the cooldowns when you're playing and you'll be a much safer and a much stronger Roadhog. At number 10, one of the best uses for Roadhog's ultimate is disrupting other ultimates that require the enemy to approach your team, such as Blade, Bob, Rally, Primal Rage, Transcendence. So if there's ever an enemy engaging onto your team, you can just whole hog them and keep them away from your team. That's a perfectly acceptable use of whole hog. You do not need to get a lot of kills with whole hog. One of the things that I use to actually improve my hook accuracy is using the 12 hogs, a one hole Ilios well game mode. It's honestly a lot of fun, so you'll enjoy it, but I played it for like 30 minutes or an hour or so, and my hook accuracy went up like 20%. So honestly, if you're not that great with hooks, just practice in this. It's not perfect practice, but it is good enough and it is engaging enough for you to actually want to keep practicing at Roadhog. Similarly, if you're looking to practice your alternate fire, which is incredibly important for a lethal Roadhog, I recommend this practice range, the code is on the screen, and doing this game mode where the enemies walk in a straight line so that you can perfectly line up that alternate fire. Just do it for like 2 hours. I know it sounds like a lot of time, but honestly the payoff is incredible. Next, here is the list of all of the heroes that don't need any sort of technique to actually confirm a kill when you hook them. You can hook them, shoot melee, and they will be dead. Next is the list of people that you need to walk forward after you pull them in. So you'll pull them in, hold your forward movement key, walk towards them, shoot and melee, and you will confirm the kills. It's a bit more difficult and it's a bit more risky and inconsistent. At number 5, this list of heroes are the heroes that are generally speaking not killable when you hook them. You're going to hook them and you need help from your teammates to be able to confirm the kill. So when you go for a hook on somebody like this, you can call out for your team to help you out if you possibly can. And finally, this is the list of heroes that are just not easily killable at all, and you definitely need help from your team. So I wouldn't necessarily go for hooks on these kinds of enemies unless you know that your teammates will actually help you or you're just not going to confirm that kill. At number 3, when you use your whole hog, just keep in mind that you can actually use it to bait abilities such as Zarya's Bubble, Deflect, Sigma's Grasp, Diva's Matrix. It's stuff that will eat your ultimate. You can whole hog and then stare straight at the ground or turn around or do something like that. At number 2, save your hook for when Diva uses Matrix, Sig uses Grap, Bap uses Lamp, Hog uses Heal, or Wrecking Ball uses Pile Drive, because these are free and easy hooks. So let's say that the Bap is lamping aggressively and getting really good lamps. Save your hook for when he uses lamps so that you can actually kill people that are in lamp that think they're safe because their Bap gets such good lamps. Or for example, when the Wrecking Ball goes for a Pile Drive on your supports, it's super easy to just predict the hook on the ground when he lands. So I go for those all the time, and it is incredibly useful because he cannot confirm the kills on your supports when they bounce up into the air. And finally, last but not least, because I am so uncreative, I put the fact that this voice line can be spammed infinitely if you time it right. Honestly, there are a few things that I could have put on this one, but I left it kind of open because I want to hear if you guys have any cool techniques in the comments, and also I think it's really funny. Honestly, it isn't, my sense of humor kind of sucks, but you know, okay. But anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. Let me know what you thought of this format. I tried to keep it entertaining, and I figured like if there were smaller tips, you guys would remember them better and it would be more engaging, but honestly, I don't know. So let me know what you think in the comments or DM me on Discord. The link is in the description down below, right next to our Twitter and Instagram. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Have a nice day. My name is Nate, and this was Blizzard Guides.